31st day with the sun shining. I don't know if I could do that for anyway, I appreciate you coming. So,
and we also really appreciate having the opportunity to show here and the work that we can see that the volunteers have done to make this happen.
Yeah, actually, Catherine's been fabulous.
Yes, Catherine is
dealing directly
today, and it's nice to be part of the community and to show something in a community rather than always away from home. Not that we're too far away from home, but it just feels good to. It feels like you're at home when you're showing in the community.
Right. So I don't know if many, you know, when we decided, okay, let's get together and do this, we came and looked at the hall and thought, well, what could we hang? And, you know, that's always a challenge of, you know, trying to get some pieces that, well, suit the space, but also work well together. And then we thought, well, possibly a good way to go is to sort of show, you know, a bunch of different things that we've been doing, evolving through the years. And so there's sort of a selection of, you probably recognize there's quite a lot of different styles and mediums. And anyway, so the thinking was to kind of keep it as a progression of work.
I think sometimes when you see an artist's work, you say, oh, that artist does still life, and that artist does only landscape, or they don't do any abstract. And well, I don't have really abstract here, but I think we wanted to show everything that we had tried, or a little bit of some of the things that we had tried. We couldn't show everything. Actually, we had more paintings that didn't really fit. You think you've got a lot of space. When you start hanging, it doesn't always. It is a big space, and yet sometimes you don't want to cram them together too much. It's sort of, I sort of like to break that myth where people assume something about you and it's just one small part of you, and there's so much more, as we know, to a person's personality and artwork. So and getting together to sort of put together a little slideshow of some of our works, it was such a great opportunity for me to see all this work that Bonnie had, you know, stuffed in shoeboxes and envelopes. And come on over to my house and we'll, you know, put some of these, scan them. And I just, you know, it's unbelievable how much work you accomplish over time if you just keep painting and painting and painting. I actually forgot about some of the stuff that I had
so that
done,
was just a real delight. And also the advantage of showing work in a space like this is that, you know, you're not confined by what a gallery wants you to put forth as your latest work. And so it's sort of fun.
Some things, you know, that you do. Well, hopefully all of it you do for yourself, but some things just don't appeal to a gallery at that time. I guess that makes us in the same category as Van Gogh and who else? Matisse? I don't know. Just kidding. But it is fun to look back at what we had done, and some of the paintings I totally forgot about that I had done. And if it hadn't been for Sally doing this, wanting to do the presentation, I wouldn't have known how to do it, for one thing. She organized the...
I had just learned how to do it. And I said, hey, you want to do a PowerPoint presentation? And she was all freaked out. Anyway, we got together and made it work. One thing I do have to say, unfortunately, looking at the screen here, it tends to squash your image into a square shape as opposed to that's why we put the laptop out front, so you can actually see the real image there is a little more accurate. It's quite different up here on the screen. The colors are lost and everything. But anyway, whatever. I don't know. It might have been better for colors if it was nighttime and we didn't have to deal with the light, but not much you can do about that.
But it is beautiful light in here, so... So what should we talk now about the PowerPoint? Or?
Yeah, why don't you? Okay. How about I sit down and listen to your PowerPoint, and then you can hear mine, and then we'll take any questions or. Or does anyone have any questions about anything at this point? Nope.
Does anybody have any questions now, or should we just keep going? Okay. This is, again, one of my watercolors. I've probably done more watercolors than acrylic paintings. The other styles I have are in acrylics or collage or mixed media, which is a combination of usually acrylic and collage. But I found really a sense of engagement with water, because water it's constantly changing, and reflections, and it's not really something you can touch, a reflection. That appealed to me, things that aren't tactile, you can't feel them, and as soon as you do try to touch them, you've ruined what you see. For example, if this was real water and I tried to touch a reflection, it would disappear. So I also liked all these organic shapes, almost Art Nouveau kind of lines in water. So I have done a lot of watercolors, and I use a masking fluid product, which is like a resist that you can put down, and then you're free to brush color over, and then you lift it up when you're ready. And I found I would do that, a lot of that, almost to the point where there are several layers with masking fluid on the different layers, and I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but it would almost all be masked in masking fluid near the end, except for a few dark lines, which it gave me a lot of freedom, and yet I had to plan. So watercolors, I found, was that there was a lot of planning ahead of time. So, but that's just one of them. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, this is earlier work. That was just a basic painting, the other one. These are earlier pieces. This is when I sort of got more serious into painting. For a few years you're busy, you're working, trying to make money, and just, not that I made a lot of money or anything, but you know, you're just busy trying to find yourself out in different ways. And then there comes a point when you say, I'm going to be, what, 30, 35, you know, what have I done? So I started just going into little local group shows like Creativity, and then I discovered there was an art school. This is much after university, which I studied art, and I'll have to say I really didn't get much out of university. Sorry, Mom, she paid the bill, but I found it was too far away from what I was doing in my own life, in my own hometown, and it was so abstract, and so I just couldn't get now I could. If I went back now, I think I could really get something out of going back to those classes. But at the time, I just felt lost, and I went through the motions, and you pass, but got through it. But I have to say, for most of the teachers, didn't seem to want to be teachers there, and I found it disappointing that it was a way for them basically I felt, to make money, and because they couldn't make it in their own art, right? So there was really only a couple teachers that really, I felt loved to teach and loved what they were doing. So anyway, I'm sorry to be so negative. But anyway, as I got older, and after working a few years and realized I had been, not doing anything with this interest I had, I found out about the Bridgewater School up near Actinolite, north of Tweed, and I took some holiday classes there where you'd stay for a week, and they'd have an instructor, sometimes somebody from a fairly well-known instructor. Carl Schaefer was still alive at the time. He was one of the instructors, and another one was Hugh Mackenzie, who was also a very good instructors, people who loved what they did. And I found I grasped so much more from that. I don't think people really need to go to university if you keep your eyes and ears open, and You can learn a lot just going to galleries and seeing different types of shows and having people that are enthusiastic around you. I was lucky that my mother was an artist, and that was one thing very dear to her that she clung to all of her life, and that helped me respect it. But anyway, Carl Schaefer was one of the instructors, and these are sort of from that time period. He actually said there wasn't enough color in my bales of straw, so those little green, faint green strokes are strokes of Carl Schaefer's on that painting. I still have the painting, so because I didn't want to give it up because he had worked on it. And they had a tutu in the studio of this school, and so that other one is a painting of an old ballet dress there. So that's some of the earlier watercolors. I still like those curvy shapes. Remember the shapes in the water scene? You can see them again here. And Sally has a painting. Is it on? Did you put that boat one on your PowerPoint that I love? It's. Oh, good. I love this painting. I can't wait to see it again that she has. And is it still for sale?
Yes.
Oh, is it? Yeah. Okay. But you'll see these sort of, again, organic kind of shapes here. I was fascinated with light. Light was very important in these other two that I did. Yes, again, you can't touch light. It's just there kind of thing. So, any questions? I'm just digressing here. I don't know. Then the watercolors kind of took a change, and you can see a couple on the wall that are similar to this, where I started doing more layers and laying down, actually laying sometimes the leaf, a physical leaf down on the flat watercolor paper and brushing the paint across it so it was like a stencil. And I did a lot of that where you're lifting, and there was masking fluid again, and then these colors would just come through because you have several layers of paint, very thin layers. It's almost like if you're looking through a couple different sheets of colored glass and how you make a third color by the two colors overlapping each other. So in this case, there may be 6, 8 layers of watercolor in different areas on that. So, and sometimes in this one, I think I started taking the paper out to the woods and tracing a cast shadow from leaves on the paper and then working with that. It's kind of hard because it's surprising how quickly that shadow moves. You know, in about 5 minutes it's gone. So another one, this is similar, actually very similar to that one, but I don't know if it's the same one or not. No, it's not. This other one traveled in a group show, the one with the round center. It traveled across Canada for a group show with the Watercolor Society. Another water scene. You know, you try different things. Hannah, do you recognize the boat one? I think Dominic and Christina have that one. Yeah. The boat one is interesting. I wanted to put it in there because the gallery that I was showing in at the time didn't want that one. And why? I mean, I find it has everything. It has terribly hard to do that with the gradated washes and watercolor, for one thing. It has that storybook feeling to it. It has mystery. I don't find it disturbing. Maybe he found night scenes disturbing. I don't know. But when you're in a gallery, you're up against all the anxieties and hopes of the gallery owner. And it can be really hard to fill that bill. You don't want me to go any further into that right now. Last week was a bad week, okay? But sometimes when that happens, it just makes you fight harder for what you want to do, because it really, when someone starts, I don't want to say the word rejecting, but they don't want to show your work, it can mean many things, and usually it boils down to money. in a commercial gallery, which is another reason why it's so nice to have a space like this where people aren't so concerned about making that dollar. Anyway, that's another big one. Jemima has this one. Remember we were talking about, I'm pretty sure she's got this one, or one like it, where I just wanted to try again that little bit of reflection where you're looking down into water. And then you start to get bored, so you try different things. And this has a little bit of collage. I think this is glued down paper. I honestly don't know. I think this is watercolor paper, then glued down handmade paper on top, and then I painted on top of that. Same with the border on the other one.
And that's watercolor?
Mainly watercolor. Mainly watercolor, yeah. Almost all, with a little bit of collage around the edge. They were kind of fun to do. This one, there's actually the wings of a dragonfly are glued down in the one corner. You know how the dragonfly hits somebody's car, and anyway, it just seemed to suit the color. I like the colors in that awfully well. They're unusual colors. And then, as we said the other day, Sally and I, we get together and we just talk about art and about falling out of love. And I started to fall out of love with watercolors. Just, I guess, the process. I had tried everything that I felt I wanted to do, so I started doing some acrylics. Didn't really know what I was doing. Sometimes I just kept spattering because I didn't know how to mix the color right. And these are acrylic ones that sort of came out of working with acrylics. I'm trying to think. I took...
That was when you fell in love with the janitor.
Yeah, this is when I fell in love with the janitor. That was our joke. Anyway. But I sort of hit a wall with the acrylics too, and this very interesting, charming, talented woman moved into town, into Kingston, named Marie-Claude Delcourt, and she still does workshops and individual training and coaching and helps students with portfolios. And she made me use black. She said, "You have to use black," and I fought it. And then I used so much black, there was, hardly anything left but black on the thing. Anyway, this one's on metal, and I started collecting metal from the woods nearby. The farmers always had a site where they dumped old cars and things, so I collected a bit of metal and using acrylics on the metal. There's one of corn back there that's on metal as well. And I like the idea of something that's taken for granted, like a bucket. But when you think of the history of all the people that used that bucket, what did they use it for? The toil involved with that, especially from my farming background, I found, and just from physical labor in general, which is basically what farming is a lot of physical labor. I found just a bucket, just a very simple tool that, is discarded and thrown away, and I wanted to save it. I actually have 5 or 6 of these now, and I have plants in them, but I just found them good subject matter. These are my neighbor's boots, and this neighbor is a woman, but she was in the Army, and she's retired now, but I really enjoyed doing them. Now, galleries, probably won't want those. Actually, I think they're in the one gallery, and he's got them tucked away. I'll probably go get them because it's just not pretty, They want things that'll go over the couch. So I don't. A lot of people wouldn't want that over their couch. I understand. More baking things. My neighbor's jacket, very well worn. Back to landscape. Okay, I did a lot of still life, and then I enjoyed it and still do it now. But there was a time when I went back with the acrylics and did landscape. It was just a very disturbing personal time for me. Changes with my job, changes to a friend who had a marriage breakup and moved away, somebody I was dear with. Another friend having cancer, and I assumed he would kick it, and he didn't get over it. He passed away. And my sister, meanwhile, having a single car accident, almost died. Probably why she didn't die, we don't know. It was a miracle. And she's at home today, probably doing her gardening. So anyway, it was just, my whole life was thrown off, and I wanted peaceful subject matter. So I did a lot more light through trees, which I found very sort of peaceful, quiet, spiritual. It's another one here. I think that might be that one. Maybe not. Still going back now and then, doing some still life. I experiment with, this is mainly liquid acrylic or liquid inks and watercolor again on a canvas. You have to put a special ground down that I sort of experimented with in order to get the watercolor to adhere rather than bead up. But it's not the same as using good watercolor paper. There's no comparison to that. Black telephone, okay. I've done several of these. It's just kind of a fun subject matter to do. Things are getting lighter and brighter again in my work. And the reflections I found interesting. I'm now starting to, in this line, think about the background, and the background is becoming more important than just the subject matter. So we're changing all the time. And I think this is the last one. Actually, it's not time for tea, it's time for Sally. We should change. But this is another one of the liquid paint on canvas, that another leaf scene. So I guess in all it was just a lot of variety of things and trying to describe what I'm going through. So any questions, or do you want to?
You want me to just dive right in?
Yeah, dive right in.
Then I'll do that, and I should get this back to. Okay, I'll try and whiz through these. I guess. I don't know where to start. Probably one of the best art classes I ever took in my life was with Rose Stewart. So Rose did a fantastic adult class at LaSalle High School, and I just loved that class. It was an opportunity to try lots of different mediums and whatnot, and yeah, anyway. I saw you sitting there and I thought, that's where I'll start.
This is about you, Sally.
No. Anyway. Oh, whoops, wait a minute. We don't want to go there yet. Whoa, okay. So this is probably where I'm at with painting these days. I'm interested in the shapes and the patterns, light on form. A lot of my work reflects my own life, what's going on in my life, and the landscape that I've sort of come across. And sometimes other things, like this abstract over here is completely different from me, but I was going through something that I was struggling with, and I really felt like painting would help me get through it, but I absolutely could not paint in the way I normally approach things, by working out a design and everything, all the steps that I kind of normally go through when I create a painting. And so I thought, well, you know, I'm just going to take this paint and move it around and just kind of work through. And anyway, so, you know, I sort of have discovered that abstracts, for me, is a great way to go when I can't work in my normal way. But anyway, so it's not something I show a lot. It's not my normal, you know, but, you know, maybe it will be in the future. I don't know. I think art is one of those things that it just, you know, it's a living thing. It starts with, you know, one thing and then into the next, and it's always moving and always evolving, and you know, you can see that in most artists' work. Anyway, let's get back to the slideshow. So I'm going to show you here the selection of things over the years, and although some of them I look at now and I think, oh, you know, like really, I was painting that? But as Bonnie said earlier, it makes you kind of look back at your work and say, no, you got to give it the respect that it was at the time. You were pleased with what you accomplished, and you know. So anyway, so back in the day, this was the first painting I ever entered in a jury show, and it got in, and I was so thrilled. But then one of the comments from the jury was, "What are all those white spots on it?" Well, the white spots are, I just discovered masking fluid. Maybe, you know, that's how I could get more light into my work. So it, you know, it just goes to show all paintings are generally kind of an experiment. And then I did an awful lot of florals when I was learning the techniques of watercolor, because I just found them a really good subject matter, because with a floral, you know, you can it doesn't have to be drawn a certain way or look a certain way, you know, you can kind of have a little more room for play. Anyway, it was really good for learning techniques and whatnot. And again, all these are really squished on the screen, but the real images on the laptops, you can get a better idea. So florals were really good for kind of learning about composition and whatnot. And then, you know, I was a young mom at the time, so really my life's interests were my kids, and I painted tons of pictures of my kids. And I put this one in here because I started to take some workshops, and I thought I started doing more landscapes and things like that. But I was really learning about technique of what, anyway, I was working from a photograph, and the photograph was the spring snow melting on this lake. And so I produced this. And the fellow I was taking the workshop with, he's a watercolorist called Zoltan Zabo, who's now deceased. But anyway, he was an absolutely fantastic teacher. But he said, this is a beautiful little painting, but these are not reflections. These are shadows on the lake. And I said, oh, and he said, I think you can make them reflections. So that afternoon, I made them into reflections. Now I think I actually prefer the previous painting with the shadows. So I put this one in there just because I thought it shows you that, you know, you shouldn't be afraid to risk something, even if it's looking nice, if you're possibly going to learn something from it. So my daughter actually owned that painting. Yeah, well, I liked the first one better, but, you know, I was trying to learn about painting reflections, and so anyway.
Look back.
Yeah, let's take.
Oh, sure, I can go back. Whoops.
Yeah.
Okay,
To
now.
me, that is more, it has a lighter feeling to it.
It's warm, much more.
Yeah.
It's very
So
soft.
with the painting, I actually prefer that. But it was a learning experience, so I ended up with that. And then we moved to Australia, and everything changed in my watercolor palette. I discovered cobalt turquoise, and all the sea and the sky for nothing but, and you know, I painted, I think, almost every single day while I was there, and would go out and I also changed my paper that I was working on to Saunders Waterford from Arches. I used to always use Arches, and then I started to use Saunders Waterford, and I sort of found I liked the effects I could get with it. This is on Saunders Waterford, and I don't know, it just kind of...
How large is that?
Pardon me?
How large would that one be?
Actually wasn't that large. It was about a half sheet. Half sheet being about 15 by 15 by or something. Yeah. And then this is, you know, more time goes by, and again, I'm still working in watercolor. We took a trip to Italy, we went to Cuba, and painting my life and experiences. And then I came back to Kingston. And I was still really working in watercolor a lot, but I don't actually quite know how I painted this, because you can't get in this position. I did go to this Highway 2, and I did a little sketch in my notebook, and then I went home and I painted this painting from the sketch in my notebook. But I somehow put myself like flying over the road. I don't quite know how it came out, but anyway. So that, I put that in there simply because that image, you know, I don't know, it sold, the painting sold, but I probably sold about 200 prints from that image. So it's been lucrative. But anyway. And so then you know, we moved back to Kingston. So again, I was still working in watercolor predominantly, but I'm painting, you know, the landscape and the urbanscape around Kingston. And then I think I started really working in oils a lot. And I was still concentrating on the subject matter that, you know, the lifestyle and culture of our little city. And then I sort of got over that. I fell out of love with that, as Bonnie says, and I became much more interested in, you know, the actual designing of the painting and whatnot. And I think these oils kind of show that much more. Oh, this is a boat. Bonnie was asking me about this boat painting. Yeah. So to me, the whole, you know, movement of the eye around the painting, that's sort of what became interesting. And then I have a daughter, Rachel, who moved out east, and I started going out to Nova Scotia all the time and fell really in love with that place. So then now we started painting East Coast everything. And then this is what I call dreamscape, because I'm still interested in painting the life of the city and just life in general and landscape, but I want to try and design it in a way so it's a little playful, or play with perspective, or tilt things, or just, I don't know, do something different with it. And so I occasionally sometimes revert back into doing this when I get a bit bored. And then, meanwhile, I'm also working on portraits. I wouldn't call myself a portrait painter, but I love painting the people that I know and that I don't feel are going to judge me if I do a really bad painting of them. So, you know, so that's something else I'm doing, but it's nothing I would necessarily show or anything. But, and this wetland series, for me, was kind of a real turning point in the way I work, because it's much more, it's really the reason why I sort of switched from working in watercolor into the oil medium, and it is for the process of working. And the best way I can kind of describe it is, for me, watercolor was like downhill skiing, and working in oils is kind of like cross-country skiing, so that you can, you know, see the landscape as you go by, and then go back and go, oh, I might want to change that, and you can kind of just take it much more contemplatively than when I was working in watercolor. Everything's, you know, you think, okay, I want to do this, and then you plan it all out, and you have all the washes ready, and you've got to work fast before it dries. And I just found that I was kind of overworking that way. I just didn't want to do that anymore. So I really started working in this kind of contemplative way, and ended up using the rural landscape around where we live, where there's lots of wetland. And then I also took the same kind of method with this series, which is called my wine tour series. We went, my daughter and son-in-law and Dave and I went to Prince Edward County and took one of those wine tours, and we drove all around the county, and that inspired a tour. And then this one, this particular series really kind of showed me the way that you can kind of progress through a subject matter and take it more abstracted, more Like there's another one, but it's much more abstracted. And then this one here, which is like completely abstracted, but it's all sort of from the same inspiration and source. But I couldn't get to this one in the beginning. I had to go through those other stages of kind of, working it out, what it looks like, and then what it feels like, and then how it ends up. So, anyway.
Sally, can I ask how large that is?
That is 30 inches wide by 24 high. And then I do a lot of, this was a plein air painting that I started plein air and finished in the studio. I see the landscape, but I go, like, how can I redesign that to be my kind of way of looking at and show the joy in what I see in the landscape. And this was Prince Edward Island last September. Our girlfriend Sherry Kringle and I went and rented a cottage on Cape Wolf, which is the far western end of the island, and it's so windy, and it rained the whole week, but we had one wonderful evening when we packed it in after painting all day and said, let's go for a lobster dinner. And we got in the car, and the sky just broke open like this, and I happened to click this picture. So the next morning I thought, that's what I'm going to paint. And anyway, so I kind of painted this, and it was just, so refreshing. And I think my delight in seeing the sun shows in this picture, because we've been, cooped up in the rain all the time. Anyway, that's it.
Several of them where you're sort of